Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So we come to this particular question, well, what is it all about? Coming into this world, being in these bodies, having these identities, relations with everybody, and then suffering. Well, what is it all about? We have already gestured. It is for us to find our true calling. Identity is a means of restricting us. And it's also a means of growing through. And it is also a challenge for us to relieve ourselves of the restrictions that identity imposes upon us. So let us take aid of that particular segment of Imam Hussein والسلام's supplication, in which he gestures and he says, "O Allah, at this point now I realize that in every affair and in every event, your sole concern was for me to become acquainted with you." Now let us analyze this statement, that in difficulties we find God. In challenges we find God, and through God we are able to overcome those challenges. Similarly, the relationships that we have in this world that are based on identity are there to acquaint us with our God. For example, the relationship that we have with our parents. On the one hand, it is meant to acquaint us with God's parental nature. That's one side of the story. On the other hand, it is meant for us to find our own inner godliness and to bring it to its completion. So the whole purpose is, one, to recognize God, and two, to allow godliness to emerge from within us. What I'm trying to say here is that we are none of these things that we imagine we are. We are, as Rumi says, a treasure like which there is no treasure. As he says in another place, that, "O you who marvels at the luminous sun, acquire your own luminosity. You will by far outshine the brilliance of the sun." So our aim is to recognize God, and through the restrictions of identity, allow the emergence of that same beauty through ourselves. So let us explain this a bit more. So when we have the relationship that we have with a brother, the first thing is we recognize that this brotherly support that we have is actually the support of God depicted through a brother. And then to actualize within ourselves that brotherliness towards the creatures of God. When we see the parental mercy and care, to recognize that this is actually a glimpse of God. And then for us to actualize this parental care within our souls towards the creatures of God. Basically, the beauty that we envisage in God is brought nearer to us through our life challenges and life relations when we begin to recognize God. And then after that, for us to allow that beauty of God to emerge within our souls. We have all these hidden facets of godliness within us. Struggle and identity triggers them off. So let us go into it a little bit more thoroughly. When we are attached with people, this is a form of restriction. When the attachment breaks, it's a form of liberation. Now, after the initial pain and the misery that is encountered by us when the relationships break, what we are supposed to do is to learn a lesson from it, let it grow, let it go and grow through it and become bigger than it. And next time round, not to be so overly emotionally attached at that very personal level. Similarly, when people hurt us, we suffer by carrying the hurt within our souls. It's a burden upon us. The aim is to let go and to actualize that facet of godliness of forgiving. After forgiving, to then want the best for them. In this way, an enemy is actually a bestowal from God and an opportunity from God. Similarly, when we become parents, we are supposed to actualize the godliness of nurturing the children, and then to look beyond our children and to have the same care for the children of the world, for they are our children. We are only separated arbitrarily through DNA, but that is not an essential part of our identity. Our identity actually is that unrestricted splendor of God. We are unlimited beings, caught up in limited identities. But with the breaking of identity, as we relieve ourselves, we actually actualize that godliness within our souls. And that is what the whole journey is about in this world. To become colorless, colorful, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself. But we could not have done this without the journey of this world. Now let us go further. When we look at other people, other religions, what we are supposed to see here is not this, that we are better than them, because that again is a restriction of identity. With religion comes limitation of identity. What we are supposed to do is to actually go beyond the biases of our religion, the discriminatory attitudes that we have. Because God, after all, has authored the black and white, male and female, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, and Hinduism. It is a strange world. God is not a religious God. We are people in the name of religion trying to find God. And religion becomes a means to barring us from God. Isn't that amazing? Whereas it's supposed to be a means to reach God. But within this limited identity framework, religion becomes a limitation. So here what we are supposed to do is to go beyond religion and to say, actually, look at it carefully. Just as humanity is beyond the determination of black and white and gender, young and old, everybody is equally a human beyond the bodily features. Similarly, when we look at the truth of godliness, it is beyond religion altogether. It is a religion in itself. And it's an easy thing to understand. There is only one God. God can only instruct one thing. Humanity is one reality. So the truth can only be one truth. What is different? What is different is the way in which this same truth has been packaged. We need to break through the limitations imposed by religion and the limitations of religious identity. If we think about it, we will find that salient, brilliant truth available right now within the community that calls itself religious community or community that does not belong to any religion. For example, today when we talk about human values, one and all will agree that there are salient human values. When we talk about virtues, one and all will agree that there is a virtuous state befitting humanity. When we talk about human nobility, everyone will accept that there is inner nobility in all of us. So we go out in the world today and we say, should there be poverty? People of every faith will say, no, there should not be any poverty. Should there be injustice? People of all faith will say, no, there is no injustice. Similarly, when we talk about inner virtues, should you be kind, gentle, merciful, forgiving? Every one of the religious people will say yes. Every one of the non-religious people will also say yes. From here, we will begin to disclose another brilliant truth, that the Word of God is one, the same God, spread across 8 billion individuals of humanity, no matter what they call themselves. There is one God, there is one light of God within one and all, and we are supposed to awaken to that, to actualize that godliness within ourselves, within the ambit of this plurality, to see that beauty. But had it not been for particular formalized religions that are at odds with each other, a soul wanting to find God would not awaken to that beautiful, brilliant reality. So just as poverty is a means for me to actualize my humanity by saying to myself that I need to share whatever God has given to me and actualize that godliness within me, similarly, the differences of religion are an opportunity for an individual to say, no, I need to transcend this situation and this state, for it is less than befitting. And that is why we often find that people state this, that people of religion should transcend the limitations of religion. I will say that every soul needs to transcend every limitation, and through transcendence of every limitation, they actualize their godliness from within. Now we look at the last thing here. Is there same spirituality spread across different religions and non-religious cultures? We will say yes. Every one of us within ourselves is yearning for a state of substantive existence. And we call that a spiritual state, at least we, the people of religion, belonging to the highest order, the most perfect being, the most loving being. And we all want to become like him. If you look at your Christian or Hindu neighbor and you see them tearing at the plight of humanity, then know that they are connected with the higher order and they are spiritually refined. If you look at a Christian doing the same, a Jew doing the same, then know that there is no difference between you and between them. It's the same light of God. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states this in the Quran. Had I wanted to, I could have made you all one. But I've made you different. The task now for you is فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ. Compete with each other or against each other in doing utmost good. Utmost good means what? Doing good to others, but that good can only be done after that goodness is actualized within the human soul. I would like to leave this particular part of the talk with this final sort of a thought that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deliberately has given us identities and made us different. But He has ensured that the same truth is carried within this plurality. It's a singular truth that is being carried forward. There is not much value in distinctions. The way we look, our genders, our statuses, our religions. These are mere means for us to look beyond and to grow beyond them, to leave behind the limitations and to embrace that salient truth, not only intellectually, but by actualizing it within our souls. The end product ought to be, as we learned from our stories, that Ibrahim invited guests to his house, and as they stretched their hands to take off the food, they called out the names of their idols. Ibrahim, Salamullah alayhi, chased them away. God reprimanded Ibrahim and he said, Ibrahim, I have fed them for the last 60 years despite the fact that they haven't called me by my name and they've worshipped other than me. And you can't tolerate to feed them for one day just because they call other than your Allah? This is a vital lesson, that these hearts should let go of all forms of discrimination, just like God is, the most beautiful one, the most splendid one. Or as Hussein ibn Ali. When Hur comes to him on the morning of Ashura, without hesitation he embraces Hur. He does not have any resentment to say to Hur that, look, because of you I'm trapped in this jungle, or I'm faced with imminent death. Or we hear that story about the man coming to Imam Hussein on his last breaths and asking Imam Hussein, do you have forgiveness in your heart for me at this point? The blessed Imam replies, I have forgiven you. To come to that point of splendor and beauty. Wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.